You know, when I thought about making this video, I originally thought about making it around 10 minutes. Just me going over what I thought about Season 1. Just a good, decent recap. And my anticipation for Season 2 going forward. That was my original idea. The idea kind of sprouted while I was editing a CK video. I just realized I had a lot to talk about. If you haven't noticed, every time I play Crusader Kings, I just have a lot to talk about when it comes to the world of Game of Thrones. So I was like, you know what, I might as well make a dedicated video on it. That would be fun. That would be kind of fun in my opinion. I thought, wow, what a great idea, Britain. Make a full-fledged video of the Song of Ice and Fire. Great idea. So, I took a break from editing my CK video and I let the idea kind of like sit there for a moment. I went to go take a shower. And then I realized very quickly as I was taking that shower that I had a lot more to talk about than just 10 minutes worth. So here it is. My thorough and entire thought on Season 1 of HOTD. House of the Dragon is a prequel to the Bad Dragon show that no one seems to want to talk about anymore. I've never seen a more silent fan base over something in my life. Because clearly there's still fans. There's still an audience there desperately waiting for something good to come out for this series. The many YouTubers that upload content revolving around A Song of Ice and Fire do stupidly well. Like they do fantastic. But no one in the mainstream wants to talk about this show. No one has mentioned this show since the final season was released, and honestly for good reason. The Game of Thrones name up until House of the Dragon was released was extremely tainted. More so by the fact that Winds of Winter never came out, or it still hasn't come out. So I mean that's just a nail in the coffin for that. All right. I feel like House of the Dragon was like the final straw for the majority of the fans. If Good Dragon Show wasn't so good, that was probably it for the Game of Thrones brand. Until Winds of Winter comes out. No, sorry. If Winds of Winter comes out. I've never personally finished the original show. I'm gonna be completely honest. I read the books at the same time while watching the show, and I just stopped at season 5. I didn't really bother with the rest of it, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. I heard how bad the rest of the seasons were, so I didn't really see a reason to keep going. But maybe one day I'll just hate watch it. Who knows at this point, man? Maybe I'll just bear through it just to hate watch them, just to see my beautiful characters get torn apart by the horrible writing.
Save yourself from hell.
There was a lot of skepticism among the fans when Hot D was announced. I don't blame them at all. I personally had faith. As long as Dumb and Dumber weren't a part of the picture, I had faith that this show was actually going to pop off. Anyways, let's get this review going. Alright? Episode 1, baby, of the Good Dragon Show. With the first episode, Heirs of the Dragon, we got that nice ice-cold open of Harrenhal. I love seeing this creepy fucking castle. With no intro, I was very curious on whether or not they were going to keep the original song. I was excited to see something new to represent the Targaryen family dynasty. Oh dear.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Look, it's a fantastic theme, so I won't complain too much. The soundtracks to Game of Thrones always slap. I'm sure they could have created something that fit the tragic tale of the Dance of the Dragons, but I'm not going to complain too much about it, alright? The intro of this first episode sets the main issue to come, the succession of the throne and the rejection of the female's claim to the Iron Throne. Our best dad Viserys won amongst the more arguably stronger claim of his cousin, Rhaenys. Rhaenys was the oldest descendant of King Jaehaerys, yet Viserys won the succession. This intro is fine. I got no issues, yet nothing really stood out to me. It's a solid way to set the tone for the rest of the season, in my humble opinion. Honestly, if I'm being 100 with you, I was just too excited. I kind of like fever dreamed my way through this introduction because I was just so excited to be watching something new in Game of Thrones. All right, I just kind of wanted to get on with it. Now, the very next scene Oh my god, it's beautiful. Seeing the wide shot of the dragon flying into King's Landing, are the creators going, oh baby, we so back. Instantly seeing the budget for this almost makes me fantasize over what the budget like this could have been with the first season of the Bad Dragon show. Look, I'm not hating on it. The first season of Game of Thrones is one of my favorites. I'm just curious is all.
Hey, that's pretty good.
That first shot along with the Dragon Keepers speaking High Valyrian is telling me that this is something different entirely than the original show. There's dragons there this time. Magic is alive and well, and not some distant memory like the original. Most characters from the original books and show talk about magic like a distant, faraway thing. You know, like Bran speaking about giants and stuff like that. And even the Maester going, look, Bran, you need to tone it down, all right, buddy?
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
But here, they established it very quickly that this is something entirely different. Now, look at that beautiful bald man. I wish I could grow a beard like that. Rhaenyra and Alicent are shown to be friends this time around, which is different than the books. Millie Adcock as Rhaenyra was a fantastic choice. She perfectly comes off as a fiery teenager without it being too annoying. Emily Carey was also a great choice as the innocent, law-abiding young lady. Her nail picking was a good touch for her nervousness of her character. Well, I might as well talk about the rest of the characters since I mentioned those two. Corlys Velaryon instantly stood out to me. The famous adventurer, a self-made man, and talk about that character design. We didn't really see him much this episode, but I couldn't wait to see more of the Sea Snake. Thank you very much. Otto Hightower was great as the ambitious, arrogant nobleman. He seems to be our Tywin Lannister stand-in. Our best boy Viserys just wants a good old time. He clearly is just a good person who sadly became king. He does not seem like a person who should be in that position whatsoever. Paddy Constantine portrays that just dad energy so well. This version of Viserys is so good, in fact, that George R.R. Martin himself has stated that he was tempted to rewrite that section of Fire and Blood because of Paddy's Viserys. I can't wait to go through the other episodes, but right now I'm just going to state for a fact, Viserys is my boy. Alright, he is the highlight of this season by far, not even close. Viserys' brother Daemon seems to be quite the D-bag. Matt Smith does portray the devilish rogue very well though. All the dragons we saw this episode were all very unique, which is leagues better than the copy and paste lizards that we got in the other show.
Ugh. Brother, ugh.
Anyone else in this episode I didn't really have much to say on, though Princess Rhaenys gives off Queen of Thorns vibes, and I'm all here for it, baby. Rhaenyra and Alicent in the Godswood as two best friends makes the future all the more tragic knowing what's to come between them. Uh-oh, the king has a cut on his back. I'm sure that'll not come up later. I'm sure that'll heal up just all fine. Though, seeing the tower of the High Towers being so chummy with the Maester, tending to King Viserys does raise a few eyebrows, though. Being the citadel where the Maesters come from is in O-Town, where the towers of the towers in the High Towers rule from. Kinda sus. The very few scenes between Viserys and Aemma were very, very cute. Besides that last one, of course. Yeah. Looks like they had an actual loving relationship, which is quite rare in the world of Westeros. And it's kind of wholesome. Honestly, I don't have much to say about Daemon in this episode, besides the obvious fact that Matt Smith's acting is splendid as always. Oh, the tournament. The random acts of violence was a bit odd. With that scene cutting between Emma's birthing scene, I understand what they were trying to convey. I just think it was shown a tad awkwardly. Besides that little issue, the tournament was a spectacle, to say the least. The heraldry, the fanciness, the costume design, it was all much better in comparison of the tournament we got in the first season of the original show. I have noticed a much better showing of the heraldry this time around. It is much more flashy and much more out there, which I appreciate. Now, that birthing scene was hollowing. Just wow. Followed by Millie's acting during the funeral, it was just mwah. It was the perfect hook to set me into this show. The acting alone made me want to just keep watching. We see how deeply broken Viserys is as he proceeds to isolate, or at least try to isolate himself before that little rat, Otto, sends his daughter in to comfort him. Man, that poor guy just wants to build his train set. Daemon also has his own way to mourn. The air for the day was the perfect amount of ambiguity. There's just amount of a chance that he said it as not. You know what I'm saying? Daemon may be a little bastard of a person, but if he's one thing, he's loyal. Alright, he's loyal to his family. To his close vicinity of a family. Alright, like, first time watching, I believed he did it for sure. But after going through the whole season, I'm way more inclined to think Otto just made that shit up. As Viserys sends Daemon away, back to the Vale, he cuts himself on the throne. And that's what we like to call symbolism. It is known to be a very bad omen for the king to cut himself on the throne in this story. It's symbolism for the throne rejecting that king. Viserys shoving Daemon away back to the Vale only isolates his family for the vultures. And that's almost exactly what happens. Alright, just between you and me, Viserys, maybe the best dad in the world, maybe just wants to make everyone happy, but that doesn't mean he's a good king, okay? A king needs somebody that has a stronger back than Viserys, okay? That crown alone is crushing him. That poor guy, he just wants to build his trains. He should have been a maester. He should have been a maester. Viserys should have been a maester. And the episode ends with Viserys declaring Rhaenyra as his heir. And that concludes the first episode, baby! We are so back!
Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
I noticed a ginormous costume upgrade this time around, especially in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. The costume design was just awful. Alright, the very few clips, I've seen a lot of clips of the later seasons, and they just look so bad. This time around, they're going all out, baby. We're here to party. We're here to have fun. We're here to vibe. This first episode did show me how slow this season was going to be. It shows the majority of the characters with the slow, dramatic scenes. I know this first season is supposed to be the prologue to the Dance of the Dragons, and honestly, I'm all here for it. I love that slow burn to get to the crazy stuff, alright? I like it. I like the little tease, alright? So, with that being said, I proclaim episode 1 as...
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
out of 10. Episode 2, The Rogue Prince. I had to switch my mic because I didn't want to be holding my long ass Rode microphone for something I'm doing just audio based. So I switched to my Yeti. I hope it's not too bad for your ears, okay? We're gonna have to deal with it, okay? Let's get on with episode 2.
Think fast, chuckle nuts.
You bet your bunions I was coming back every week for Dragon Show after what I was left with last time. Alright, I was giddy. I was giddy for the next episode. Last episode showed us what the Targaryen dynasty looked like at the peak of their power. It's been peaceful for far too long. They call them the Summer Knights. Men who's been itching for a fight, not truly grasping the cost of war. And that's kind of been the theme so far. We finally get an intro this episode. I've seen a lot of people complain about this intro, but honestly, I don't mind it. The idea of the family tree looks cool. Sure, it's a little confusing, but honestly, I don't see any room for me to really complain. It fits. It's fine. It does it well enough. Will it confuse a lot of people? Sure. Will a lot of people not understand what the hell it's about? Sure. This episode starts with some crabs on a beach. Lots of crabs on a beach, actually. Kind of pretty, kind of a pretty shot here. Corlys comes into the courtroom furious that Viserys has still done nothing about the pirates on the stepstones. I think it's been about 6 months since the first episode.
Oh, you motherfucker.
Corlys mentioned the stepstones last episode, yet everyone was too busy talking about the tournament and talking about the heir and talking about all sorts of other things that Corlys was just kind of shoved underneath the rug. And a proud man like Corlys, of course he's gonna be a little ticked off by that. Now the pirates are actually making a bit of a fuss on the stones of the steps, and Corlys, that's how he makes his money, through the trade through that area. So he's big angry about this. That's how he makes his money. Rhaenyra is sent to choose the new Kingsguard. Oh, wait a minute.
That's the dude from the tournament in the last episode. Crispy Cole. Rhaenys watches the princess with a careful eye above. Gotta love a sassy grandma, you know what I'm saying?
Damn straight.
Viserys and Alicent sit over his train set. I actually particularly really like Alicent's costume here. I like to think that it represents her being trapped by the society and her father and the laws of the world that she lives in. She just feels really stuck by what she should do because she's a pious, lawful young woman, but she feels very trapped by that. It's a big theme in this show about women's place in the society of Westeros, and I think her costume kind of encapsulates that. Viserys mentions that he'd rather face the Black Dread himself than his own daughter, which is curious to say the least. Viserys hasn't rode a dragon since the Black Dread died, and has no interest on them, it seems, at all, really. Viserys has pointed towards that he has kind of an indifferent opinion on the dragons. Maybe he had an incident with them. No, it doesn't explain it here, but it does pique some eyebrows, you know what I'm saying? It seems to me, from my calculations, that Viserys is scared of these fire-breathing lizards. Viserys being a single Pringle is the focus of this episode. He is offered Laena Velaryon, but understandably, he's a bit hesitant on the marriage. Yikes, yeah.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
This episode feels like a two-parter to the last one, which honestly I kind of vibe with. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's a solid, so far it's a pretty solid episode. It's just it's an episode that you kind of like, you don't really rewatch, you know what I mean? Like, it's a solid one. It has no real issues with it. You only really rewatch it once you go through the show again, you know what I mean? You don't particularly pick that episode out of the bunch. But Viserys trying his damnness to try to talk to Rhaenyra makes my heart ache. He is too good a man for his position, man. Viserys' fingers got an ouchie and continues to grow and fester, it seems, and I hope that doesn't become an issue later on. In this scene, we also see a different side of Otto. He sympathizes with Viserys over his wife's passing. Otto also lost his wife, so he can relate to Viserys' pain. He's still a rat, but a complex rat. Alright, he's a rat with layers. Rhaenys gives some old grandma wisdom about men refusing to ever see a woman on the Iron Throne to Rhaenyra. We always love some old grandma wisdom. I love Rhaenys. Alright, I do appreciate Rhaenys. Daemon has a little bit of a ruffle. He steals an egg and then hangs out on Dragonstone without contest, just to ruffle his brother's feathers. What a silly little guy. Apparently he's been there since the end of the last episode. Instead of going to the Vale like his brother told him to, he just pissed off to Dragonstone. Otto slithers his way on going to confront Daemon himself instead of the king. That little rat, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Craxy's screech is literally the coolest shit I've ever heard. Oh my lord. Rhaenyra shows up with her dragon to calm things down, and we get an awesome shot on the bridge, okay? And then they live happily ever after. This scene was when I first noticed the soundtrack. Alright, it is so good. Rhaenyra's little theme is so good, I had to add it to my Spotify the moment I heard it. Also, what's up with this chick's accent? I don't get it.
You swore to protect me, Demo.
It's been the only thing about the cast. I don't think it's on her, actually. No. I take that back. I don't think it's on the cast. I think it's just the accent itself. What the hell? Who chose that? Alright, fire them. Lord Lionel gives Viserys some actual advice without any of the fucking politicking behind it. And I like it. I like this. I like this guy. I like that guy. I have a good feeling about this guy. Alright? I have a good feeling about this guy. The big moment in this episode is Viserys' choice on who to marry. Does he marry the little girl that arguably, sucks to say, probably the best option for the realm that combines two very powerful families? Is it a little grody? Is it a lot grody? Yes. But with how everything's been building up, I already knew Viserys' choice when he announced who he was gonna marry, sadly. Viserys is just a man who likes to swerve around things. He doesn't choose the strongest option. You know, he's a man of a heart. He's a man who chooses from his own heart. All right, he likes his feelings. And it was so sad seeing Rhaenyra's realization before he even said it. Alicent's picking at her fingers. Rhaenyra is completely heartbroken. Corlys is understandably pissed off. Otto's little shrewdness smile knowing he won. It is such a good scene. Definitely the highlight of this episode. Solid episode. The bridge scene and the ending scene with Viserys' announcement are the only things that really stand out. And I think I think about this episode like I think about season 2 of Game of Thrones. You know, they're both solid, but I wouldn't really watch them unless I was going to watch a full watch through. You know what I mean? Go through the whole thing. So I announce episode 2, The Rogue Prince. A good out of 10. Episode 3. This is the first episode that I actually have a slight problem with. It's not, it's not perfect. It's been a few years since the last episode. We have a son Viserys had with Alicent, a great hunt that made up for an awful one in the original show, and a war in the Stepstones with Daemon and Corlys. This episode starts with a burning Valyrian ship, pirates scavenging through the wreckage, the crab feeder doing crab feeder things to a Valyrian soldier. Then we get a cool scene of a heroic Daemon saving by killing the Valyrian soldier. No clue how people like his character. Very cool dragon though, probably my favorite dragon design out of the whole show. We go to Viserys having a lovely feast for his new son. There's more we see in this scene. There's more to Otto than we originally thought. Otto's older brother pushes him to make sure Aegon's claim to the throne is secured. There's a lot of second brother themes in this show. Second brothers punching up towards their older, superior counterparts. I do love seeing the trickle of scheming. Hobart pressures Otto, who pressures Alicent into securing their line of succession. Ragtag Lannister in this scene, giving news of the Stepstones. I love how they introduced the Lannister family this time around. We do get confirmation it's been 3 years since the last episode. Daemon and Corlys have been having trouble in the Stepstones, because once they bring out the dragons, they all go hiding away in the caves, away from the fire-breathing lizards. I am a bit confused on why it's taken 3 years to solve this issue. Wars do take a while, so I guess I'll excuse that. Then again, they did resolve this issue fairly quickly, so I don't know. But the true problem I have with this episode comes later. Viserys indulges himself on the feast before going on a royal hunt for the name day of his son. Viserys ignoring his problems and just eating all the food available to him. Food and Rhaenyra, that's the only two things this guy has on his mind. Rhaenyra's isolating herself and acting like a rebellious teenager because she thinks she's getting replaced. Also, her best friend is getting married to a father. That also might have something to do with it. This adds such a layer of depth to their relationship, unlike the book. Alicent and Rhaenyra were like 10 years apart, I think, in the books, and weren't really all that close. So there wasn't much of an issue for Viserys to marry her. Making those two best friends adds a level of tragedy to the situation.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Again, Millie Adcock plays the disobedient teenager very well and believable. Many of times, there's been examples of teenagers being represented to be very annoying and not really sympathetic in a lot of media, but this time around, it is very believable and very sympathetic to her cause. We arrive to the royal hunt. We see the Lannister twins, Jason and Tywin Lannister, who are played by the same actor, which is hilarious. Lionel Strong's two sons, Harwin and Loras. Harwin Strong is known as Harwin Breakbones. He's said to be the strongest man in Westeros, though he doesn't really look the part. I love the acting done by the actor. He just doesn't seem to be the strongest man in the entire country. Not like Mr. The Mountain from the OG show and books. Loras has a clubfoot and is on the gossip around the town. He's more of a gossiper. Our boy Loras.
I'm built different.
Hobart Hightower commits some light treason by calling Aegon second of his name. Something I didn't know until later in life is that regnal numbers are by the station of the man, not by how many people who have the same name. I didn't know that. Aegon would be the second king to have the name Aegon. So Hobart calling him that is implying that Aegon is the true heir to the crown. I hope that makes sense. I remember a kid back in middle school who had a regnal number, so for the longest time I was very confused on the rules on the whole thing. Rhaenyra gets hit on by Jason Lannister, the arrogant twin out of the Lannisters. I think Rhaenyra rejecting him has been the first time Jason has ever been rejected in his life. Jason just embodies the meaning of Lannister, and it's just hilarious. Damn! Seems like Tywin Lannister was like the only brains out of that entire dynasty, man. The White Hart has been spotted. White Harts have an importance in both Westerosi and historical times. If Viserys can hunt a White Hart, it would be a good omen for his son, Aegon. While this whole shindig goes down, Rhaenyra takes off on a horse. Our boy Sir Crispy chases after her, and they have their own little adventure together out there in the woods. Now this line in particular took me by surprise. The second time watching, I went, holy shit. Do you want me to kill him has so much weight behind it after watching who Crispy turns into. I completely forgot he said that my first time viewing the episode. At the time, it just felt like such a throwaway line. Viserys drinks a lot of wine throughout this episode. He seems to be getting a bit of a belly. He's stressed. Dado Viserys is stressed. Viserys keeps getting reminded that he is the king, and we all know the saying, any man who must say I am the king is no true king. But Viserys doesn't say I am the king. He has to be reminded that he is the king. I just find it hilariously ironic that this poor man, who definitely should not be in this position, has to be reminded of the power he actually wields. Viserys just wants everyone to be happy, everyone he cares about, which isn't possible for someone in his position. We see yet again Lionel give Viserys some genuine advice. I like this Lionel guy. Crispy and Rhaenyra has a night out in the woods together. A boar attacks them at night. I don't know if it was intentional, but that's a great Bobby B reference. Rhaenyra stabs the ever-living shit out of the boar, letting out all of her frustrations. Then we cut back to Viserys drinking by the fire. It hurts to see this man crumble by the weight of the realm. In the morning, Viserys does find a stag. Not the White Hart, but a normal stag. Viserys stops and sees this stag tied up, like Emma was to the bed. First time though, I didn't really connect it, but I think this scene calls back to the first episode. That's why Viserys looks so distraught. I think him seeing the stag tied up by the huntsman takes him back to his beloved tied up to the bed. Even the squeal of the stag slightly sounds familiar. It cuts to Rhaenyra, and the White Hart the king has been tracking shows up, symbolizing her right to the throne. We hear Rhaenyra's little theme play in the background as she shows back up to camp. Everyone looking towards her as she's covered in blood. Oh yeah, this guy's into it. Now, everything leading up to this particular part of the episode, I loved. Probably been my favorite moments in the entire season so far. However, I understand that the War in the Stepstones is quick. It didn't have a whole lot of meaning much in the end. That's what most people complain about. But I don't care about that, alright? I understand that it's just keeping things moving along, because that's not the point of the whole season at all. It's the whole season is just the prelude. It's the build-up. It's the prologue. Alright, so I don't mind them having to wrap up the war very quickly to get on with the rest of the season. What I hate is how much action it was. It reminded me too much of the Battle of the Bastards. It goes against what Game of Thrones is all about. It's not supposed to be showboaty. It's not supposed to have so much flair and look so badass. Sure, Battle of the Bastards was a beautiful choreographed scene. It was phenomenal. Watching it hypes me up every single time. But war isn't supposed to be like that. George R.R. Martin has stated multiple times, he's an anti-war man. He's not. War's supposed to be gritty. War's supposed to be nasty. It's supposed to have consequences, you know? And if Daemon were to run into a suicide charge like that, there should have been consequences, alright? Even a little one, alright? Give him a limp from one of the arrows. Give him something, alright? Maim him in some way, and I would have been satisfied. There should have been consequences for that white flag trick.
Wait, that's illegal. No, it isn't. I don't want it to be illegal. Therefore, it isn't.
Also, beating that messenger earlier, man, uncalled for. The Valyrian armor was badass, though. I will say that. I understand why Daemon did it. He wants to get attention from his brother. He wants to prove to his brother he's worthy. All that jazz. I get it. I do get it. I'm just saying he shouldn't have walked away unscathed. For that being said, I did very much enjoy the first half of this episode. And for the rest of the episodes going forward, I think I must proclaim this episode as... Alright. I said, alright. Out of 10. Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. After being whiplashed by that last episode, we move on to Episode 4. Starting off with Rhaenyra appearing to be clutching the necklace that Daemon gave her in Episode 1. God, that is just so weird. Rhaenyra is at Storm's End, seat of House Baratheon. She's in search of a proper betrothal, which makes her playing with that necklace just a tad bit more weird. She's clearly thinking of Daemon instead of any of these betrothals. Rhaenyra's cold and harsh towards all these lords. She's being a bit of a brat. It seems funny in the moment, but it definitely won't make her any allies in the future. We have a member of House Blackwood and Bracken shooting insults at one another. Blackwoods and Brackens are houses with ancient rivalries. The cute little Blackwood finally has enough of the Bracken, and they break out into a fight. The little guy defeats the big bully Bracken. We're also seeing another example of how antsy the realm is for war. These are dangerous times for the crown. On the way back to King's Landing, Daemon swoops in just in time to almost capsize Rhaenyra's boat. The rogue prince is finally back in town, and he's coming in wearing a crown. I didn't mean to make that I didn't mean to make that rhyme. Rhaenyra looks fondly at her uncle. Daemon takes off his crown and gives it to Viserys, and the brothers embrace each other. Just more proof that Daemon only wants his brother's approval. He's very childish in that regard. They celebrate Daemon's return. Viserys is shown drinking and reminiscing on his childhood with Daemon. Oh yeah, and Daemon got a new do while he was away. Rhaenyra and Alicent talks among themselves. They show a glimpse of what they used to have for each other. Alicent tries to tell Rhaenyra it isn't so bad having all these potential suitors. It's lucky for a girl to get 2 options. Rhaenyra blows her off though, saying, how can it be so romantic when she'd be imprisoned in a castle, only there to produce heirs? And that hits a little too close to home for Alicent. And Ray totally kills the vibe. The scene ends with them holding hands though. These 2 characters are just the best. The dynamic of Alicent and Rhaenyra is tragic, and I love it. One's chaotic, only wanting to live life to the fullest, and the other is on the other side of the spectrum, trapped by her father and her duty as a woman. Now we have another grooming scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra. We always love those. I don't think I've mentioned it, because I kind of glossed over Daemon in the first episode, but they have a secret language together between him and Rhaenyra. Daemon's an interesting character, I will say. I haven't really talked about him, and I don't really have much to say. He's chaotic, to say the very least. The most interesting thing about him is his loyalty to his brother. But besides that, he doesn't really have a whole lot of redeeming qualities. He likes to groom his niece.
You what?
He likes to create chaos in the politics in King's Landing. And I keep mentioning the fact that he's grooming his niece because I've seen some wild, and I mean some wild posts on the internet about Daemon. Matt Smith does a great job though, I will say. Rhaenyra finds a little care package when returning to her chambers. Her uncle Daemon left a little treasure map that led to a secret passage with some clothes as a disguise. We see rats hiding in the skull of a dragon as Rhaenyra sneaks out to meet up with Daemon. The duo has a fun night out. Crazy magic, music, all sorts of colorful characters in the downtown of King's Landing. We cut to Viserys in a bubble bath, his disease slowly growing. Alicent tends to her husband, while Rhaenyra is out in town, having a grand old time. Rhaenyra sees a play making a jest at her rule as future queen. She also runs into Sir Harwin Strong, wink wink. We cut back to Alicent, having a joyless time in the bed with a man rotting away.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
He's falling apart at the seams, while Rhaenyra is just having a time of her life in town. Rhaenyra and Daemon start to even have a little fun of their own, but Daemon stops himself and leaves Rhaenyra all alone in a particularly dangerous part of town, I'd say. Still flustered though, Rhaenyra heads back to the Red Keep and bangs the first guy she sees, which happens to be her guard, Criston Cole. Now, if someone joins the King's Guard, like our boy Criston, you have to take a vow of celibacy. I hope that doesn't come back later. A little bird just so happened to see Rhaenyra during her little adventure, who tells Otto. Otto is absolutely disgusted by the news. He couldn't even get himself to tell the king exactly what happened. And I think this scene is just another example of the complexity within Otto. He may be on the other side of this whole thing. He may be making the succession crisis a much bigger problem, but he's sympathetic. At least I find him sympathetic. I won't say I like him more than show Tywin, but I absolutely do like him more than book Tywin. I will say that. Hot take, I only like Tywin because of Charles Dance's performance. It's something about Charles Dance makes Tywin a much more enjoyable character. Charles Dance is a phenomenal actor. Otto here has actual trouble telling Viserys about Rhaenyra's exploits. And it's not a front, trying to gain points from the king. We see him before he enters the room that he's having a hard time digesting the information. I love complexity with my villains, and Otto just hits that spot for me. Alicent is absolutely heartbroken by the news. She confronts Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra does the first thing that I'd say is pretty fucked up. She lies to Alicent. She lies to her best friend.
You dirty bitch!
Rhaenyra goes to the length of swearing on the memory of her mother underneath the Godswood. It was a truly fucked up thing for Rhaenyra to lie so blatantly to Alicent like that. But Alicent ends up believing her and defends Rhaenyra against the accusation. Viserys finally stomps his foot down and marries Rhaenyra to Laenor Velaryon. He also kicks out Otto as Hand of the King. Anna Maester delivers moon tea to Rhaenyra, which is basically Plan B in Westeros. And that's where we end this episode. This episode's a solid one full of drama and politicking. We see Rhaenyra be a little bit more of a demon than her usual self. We see Otto get booted. We're seeing Viserys get more and more rotted away. His hairline's receding. I'm not quite sure where to put this one, but I declare this episode
Fucking politicking.
Starting off this episode in the Vale, Lady Rhea, who I presume is Daemon's wife, is hunting by herself. Comes off as a no bullshit kind of gal, which is probably why Daemon hates her. He's not interested unless he has full control of the relationship, obviously. Lady Rhea rides until she sees a hooded stranger in the middle of the road. Was he just standing there the whole time, or what? It's revealed to be her husband, Daemon. Rhea makes a jest at Daemon for not consummating the marriage. Daemon just stands there menacingly. She realizes that in order for Daemon to be heir again, he'll need to marry Rhaenyra. But it's too late. The horse gets spooked, and Lady Rhea falls off and cracks her spine, leaving her paralyzed. Daemon almost leaves her. She makes another jest, and Daemon finishes the job with a rock. Now, I know Daemon is like a bastard, like a hardcore bastard, alright? I don't think killing her was really his goal. Like a rock? If he wanted to kill her, would he have brought like a knife or a sword or something? You know? It also kind of looked like he went up to calm the horse when it spooked. What a weird scene. What a really weird scene. They never touch on this again. We cut to Viserys on a ship heading to Driftmark. Poor man is seasick. I do want to point out that I have hardly seen Viserys actually wear his crown.
Wait a minute!
Our homeboy Lionel, our best boy Lionel, comes in for the clutch with a rag for Viserys. Looks like he's replaced Otto as the hand. Smart move. As Otto is leaving King's Landing, we get a heartfelt moment between him and Alicent. He pleads with her to see everything from his point of view. The realm will not support Rhaenyra. He may have spurred the succession crisis by his own ambition, but it is a very touching scene between a father and a daughter. This is actually one of the scenes I think of when I think of this season of House of the Dragon. Alicent is greeted by Loras in the Godswood. We've seen Loras briefly in another episode. Our boy Loras over here is very knowledgeable in flowers, so he must be just a cheery old chap. Loras comments that Alicent is an outsider among natives. But it's also curious, maybe he's referring to himself as well. He reveals to Alicent that Rhaenyra straight up lied about her and Daemon last episode, which destroys Alicent's trust within Rhaenyra. He also specifically mentions the moon tea that she drank. I wonder how he got such knowledge myself. Rhaenyra and Laenor have a walk on the beach. They come to an agreement for their future marriage, using a duck and a goose metaphor. Laenor is gay, after all, and Rhaenyra still wishes to sleep with whoever she wants to.
And the plot thickens!
Rhaenys warns Corlys that his ambition will bring a war. She knows Rhaenyra's succession will be challenged. Corlys is all like, what about justice? You should have been queen, my wife. And she's all like, dog, I put that aside. I've grown past that. I'm a grown-ass woman. On the way home, Criston Cole approaches Rhaenyra. He's torn since he's broken his vows. He pleads that they should start a new life together, marry each other, move away, far, far away. Rhaenyra, though, she was just having a little bit of fun. She definitely wasn't taking their hookup all that seriously. And she rejects his offer, and it hurts Cole.
You leave me
we see a different side of Cole, a more disturbing Cole. He's hurt by Ray's rejection and doesn't know what to do. Rhaenyra says it doesn't mean that they can't still hook up. Cole's pride just won't have it though. I like this turn in Criston. He was the noble knight for this whole time. Like the noble, stereotypical, honorable knight. And it completely got flipped on its head. It's very smart. In a writing perspective. Obviously as a character, he's a little bastard. Viserys isn't doing too well. After that long travel to Driftmark, he collapses in the courtyard. The queen calls Sir Criston in to have a talk with him. She wants to know the truth of what happened with Rhaenyra. He thinks she's talking about him and Rhaenyra, and immediately comes clean. The guilt was too much for him to keep it a secret, and it shocks Alicent to learn of the truth. Melos brings more leeches for the king. Listen, bro, I don't think the leeches are working, if I'm being completely honest with you. We see another maester offer a different remedy, but Melos blows him off. I almost forgot we had a royal wedding this episode. But the drip? Oh baby, the drip at this wedding is off the charts.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Criston over here mean-mugging our groom. Viserys gives a big old speech, but is interrupted by the queen, Alicent, who is wearing a beautiful, beautiful green dress. And of course, we all know that when Hightower wears green, it means war. I almost love everything about this wedding. The dance, the costumes, the soundtrack. The only thing that stuck out was that ending. Like, huh? What? Like, anyone stop Criston from leaving at least? He's a Kingsguard. He can't just randomly kill a man. It was pretty weird. Laenar's boyfriend figures out who Rhaenyra's been banging off of vibes, I guess, and he tries to do a friendly shake of blackmail. Cole is so pent up and he just snaps and beats the ever life out of the dude in the middle of the wedding. After the wedding, Criston goes to the Godswood to kill himself. I'm assuming because of what he did. But Alicent stops him before he could stab himself. After this episode, there is a giant time jump, so we never get an answer to how he didn't get put to death for what he did. It was definitely an odd situation. I think it's just a sad part of having a season with so many time skips and whatnot. We could at least have one scene, one like mention of it. I don't know, something along those lines. At least some form of clarification on what the hell happened. What stopped Criston from getting his head chopped off. The episode ends with Viserys falling once again during the quiet and lonely and cold marriage between Rhaenyra and Laenor. Not a happy wedding, that's for sure. The camera pans to see another rat in the Red Keep. Besides the weirdness of Criston killing a dude, I really like this episode. Yeah! We're seeing Viserys slowly deteriorate. He's slowly falling apart. Rhaenyra finally figures out that she wants to stay to become the queen for real. After all season of her contemplating whether she wants to leave it all behind, stay, we finally see her commit to the throne. We see Criston's character flip on a dime. We got that cute little father and daughter scene between Otto and Alicent. We also start to see the fire in Alicent. That lady is pissed. A lot of good stuff in this episode. The cracks in the Targaryen family dynasty are growing episode by episode. So I declare this episode as
I love weddings. Drinks all around.
Here it is. The big time jump. Actors have been replaced. And very well, I might add. If I am so inclined to. They did such a good job on the replacements. Though I am sad to see Emily Carey's and Millie Adcox's departure. Emily Carey's replacement is so damn good, in fact, that I genuinely didn't notice at first. It's been about 10 years since the last episode. This show so far has been centralized into a singular family this time around, instead of having all these characters stretched out all over the place, you know, like in the original series. And I think it's worked very well in the, at least the story's favor. I have a lot more of an emotional connection to these characters because of that fact, that I don't have to be pulled around the entire continent, you know. I didn't mind the original series at all, but the fact that this particular show now has just one central focus, I can devolve all my emotion to this one story, instead of having to hop around from like Tyrion's point of view to Dany's point of view to Jon's point of view. You know, I don't have to really go back and forth so much. I can just focus on these central characters. We start with another birthing scene. Ray is our baby mama. She looks awful like her mom in this scene. It's ironic that Rhaenyra has fought and fought against being a typical woman in this society just to push out heirs just like her mother. The queen instantly wants to see the baby. So in an act of defiance, Rhaenyra goes to the queen herself, just right after pushing out a baby. What a girl boss. Laenor is a bit dense when it comes to this kind of stuff, which is kind of funny to watch. Kristen Cole hasn't aged a day, it seems.
Neutrogena Rapid Wrinkle Repairs Derm-Proven Retinol.
And Papa Viserys has seen better days. To say the least, my goodness. Alicent delivering zingers to Laenor. We are shown that Rhaenyra has a few little rugrats now, and all of them have dark hair.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Sir Harwin is shown to be the daddy of all these kids. Ray and Harwin have had an adorable relationship at some point during the time skip. We go to the dragon pits with all the children. Alicent and Viserys also had a few kids of their own during this time skip. And all the kids go to the dragon pits to learn how to control their dragons. They are all kind of clumped up together. Little Aemond, who is Aegon's younger brother, doesn't have a dragon and is a bit of ashamed of it. The other kids pick on him for not having a dragon. He's jealous of the other kids and they bully him a bit. They give him the pink dread as a joke, which is a pig. Alicent also has another kid named Helena. She's an oddball. She likes bugs and she likes saying creepy, cryptic things. But she also, she's a green seer. She can see the future, but no one really understands what the hell she's saying because she says it in such a weird way. She doesn't really know how to talk. She's a bit of a weirdo, but I really like Helena. I like Helena. She's just a bit of a weirdo. Alicent and Viserys are at odds because of how obvious it is that Rhaenyra's children are all bastards. Yet Viserys denies it outright. Alicent feels like she's being gaslit by everyone. No one in court seems to be calling out all of these bastards. Alicent feels like she's losing her mind. She has been a good lady doing what is right by law, and yet Rhaenyra gets to run around and do whatever the hell she wants to do. Of course she's gonna act in disgust. She's frustrated that she's been trapped her whole life, and seeing her friend be so reckless with her actions is injustice in her eyes. It just makes sense. Alicent has issues with her kids. They're all a bit fucked up, alright? They're all a bit strange. One likes bugs and can't talk in coherent sentences. The other one jerks off of windows. And the other, well, I guess Aemond isn't so bad. He's just a bit of an edgelord, I guess. He's a bit of an anime villain, our boy Aemond over there.
You sussy baka.
Daemon is now chilling in Essos with his new family. I would have skipped over this part because not much happens, but what happens to his wife later in the episode is just such a badass move. She's preggo, and the birth isn't going well, and Daemon ends up in a very similar position as his brother in the back of the first episode, but instead of making that decision for her, he scoffs at the choice, really. She ends up sneaking out and goes out like an absolute G, having Vhagar, the biggest dragon on the continent, burn her alive. She refused to go out like so many women of this time. She wanted to go out like a warrior on her own terms, and that's what she did, like an absolute boss.
Damn.
The kids are training in the yard. Sir Crispin, still salty over Ray's rejection, starts to pit the kids against each other. He pits the Alicent's kids and Rhaenyra's kids against each other in the little training yard there. Harwin helps the kids, of course, but falls into Kristen's trap by letting Cole get in his head, angering him to the point of Harwin lashes out on the night, only proving that the kids are in fact bastards. These kids are victims of a war that their parents started. Probably since they've had memories, they've only known to be enemies of each other. Rhaenyra overhears an argument between Sir Harwin and his father. They both argue over their family's honor. It's interesting that they both have different ideas of what honor is. It reminds me back in the original series with Ned and Jaime. Ned and Jaime are different sides of the same coin, essentially. Both are stricken with a sense of honor, but they see honor in a completely different way. I love it. This whole strong family is underrated, in my opinion. Lionel is an absolute homie, an honorable servant to the crown. Harwin is a good man who loves his family, And there's the other one, Loras. Yeah. He's definitely the most evil bastard in the show, and you'll see why later. I only wish I got to see more of that family and Harwin's relationship with Rhaenyra. I thought that'd be pretty nice. I think a lot of the time skips here are kind of screwed up because I would like to see Daemon's relationship with his wife. We didn't get to see anything. We never really get to see that whole family side of Daemon. From all we know, Daemon just had a vacation and raised an entire family that we never got to see. It's kind of sad. Laenor, Rhaenyra's husband, has only partied for the last 10 years. Probably a coping mechanism of sorts on the traumatic wedding he had, losing his boyfriend back in the day. Rhaenyra gives him a stern talking to, but Laenor only wants to go to war in the Stepstones again. He wants to go on a grand adventure. Laenor has indulged himself the past 10 years. As the rumors of the bastards have started to spread, Rhaenyra needs Laenor to stay and support her in her time of need. At court, Rhaenyra tries to mend the families by marrying her kids to Alicent's. But Alicent refuses.
Oh, hell no!
A marriage would have solved this family dilemma. And even Viserys, of course, Viserys is like, yeah, yippee! Yippee, the family's back together! Yet, the plan has been foiled. Alicent's like, nah, none of that bastard having ways in my family, thank you very much. In the middle of Rhaenyra's proposal, she starts to lactate. It's embarrassing, but also shows Rhaenyra's struggles with being a whole woman. Lionel comes into the king's chambers to resign his position as the king's hand. His honor forces him to step down. His advice to the king cannot be unbiased if his son is banging the princess. Lionel can't admit why he's resigning, so Viserys is just like, okay, like, no. He refuses to accept it. Like, if you can't tell me why, dog, you're staying right here. Alicent is shown having dinner with Loras. It looks like it's been a regular thing now. Loras tells her little secrets around the castle. He's basically like a Littlefinger. He has lots of little birds, little secrets, but he's also a manipulating little bastard. So yeah, I think he's a good cross between Varys and Littlefinger. Alicent briefly slips to Loras that everything would be just dandy if her father was back in town. Loras is then showing going down into the dungeons, recruiting the most interesting of characters, cutting off their tongues so they can't talk. Then we see Harwin. He's being sent to Harrenhal, and his father's going with. We get a sad scene of Harwin saying bye to his sons, and the boys question whether or not Harwin is their true father. Rhaenyra is tired of all the whispering, rumors, and court and whatnot, so she leaves for Dragonstone with her family. The men who Loras hired are shown to be stalking the Strongs as they arrive to their castle. A tragic fire breaks out while they're sleeping and they burn. Like I said, I wish I got to see more of the Strongs. They were a good family. Also, what the fuck, Loras? You psychopath? You killed your brother and your father? Just to get in good with the queen? What the hell, man?
Perhaps.
Viserys is alone next to his train set crying while kissing Emma's ring. A rat scuttles along the wall. We've been seeing a lot of rats in this show. Alicent's shocked when she heard the news of what Loras did, and yet she doesn't do anything, strangely enough. This episode was a lot of catch up in a way. It was a lot of like catch up on what everyone's doing, what everyone's feeling. Not all necessarily bad, but there was a lot of like story elements I would like to love to see, you know? I would love to see a different side of Daemon, because I don't really care much for Daemon. I think George R.R. Martin said that is his favorite character. I've heard around that he stated that. I never really saw the exact point on when he said that, but I heard that Daemon's George's favorite character, and maybe it got lost in translation.
You know, I'm notorious for my love of gray characters. And one of the grayest characters in the entire history of Westeros is Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince.
I would have loved to see more of Harwin's relationship with Rhaenyra and the boys. And I think it's just a tragic consequence of having a season stretched out so many years. It's very sad to see. I do love this episode, though. Harwin's tragic relationship with Rhaenyra was never really going to end well. Otto getting his seat back, Alicent's frustration, Viserys' depression. It's an episode I find myself watching more often than not. And it's a great one. It's a good one.
Our marriage.
Episode 7, Driftmark. Laenor, overseeing the sea as his sister's coffin falls into the ocean. A Valerian funeral custom. It's a somber start to the episode. A shot of the hand of the king's pin on Otto's coat, confirming that Alicent's assassination last episode absolutely worked. Corlys' brother stares down Rhaenyra's kids as he speaks a line about Valerian blood. Lots of stare downs during this funeral. A lot of heated tensions. Helena being Helena with a spider.
Itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout.
We take our time at this funeral. We've seen a lot of characters' reactions to the death. There's a lot of tension amongst all the characters here. Viserys accidentally calls Alicent Emma before going to bed.
What the fuck did you call me?
Otto finds Aegon passed out drunk on a staircase. Not out of sadness, mind you. Aegon's just being a little bastard who enjoys nothing but sex and drinking, among other devious acts. Aemon notices Vhagar flying about. Since Vhagar's his rider, is no longer with us. Vhagar's up for grabs. Rhaenys is in grief. She's trying to find a place to push blame on her daughter's death. She knows that this push for power is going to cause destruction, but Corlys has too much ambition. I like Rhaenys. She's a wise old woman. Not as sassy as the Queen of Thorns, but she has her own flair. Rhaenys tries to convince Corlys, I don't know, to pass Driftmark to Laenys' children with Daemon. But that would confirm Rhaenyra's infidelity with the Strong. Rhaenyra and Daemon have a romantic walk on the beach. They link up, as you could say. Aemon stalks Vhagar. That crazy bastard is gonna try to claim the biggest dragon in Westeros. It's a pretty cool yet wild scene. Aemon barely hangs on to the saddle as Vhagar lunges into the air. This dragon is absolutely massive. A relic of Aegon's conquest back in the day. A beast from another time. Are dragons like alligators or something? They just like grow until they die? I would love to see the Black Dread at some point. In some way or fashion, like a flashback or something, dude. The Black Dread would be fucking awesome. Still kind of wild that Aemon was able to hold on to Vhagar like that. But Vhagar is officially claimed once again. The kids at the castle notice Vhagar flying around and goes to see what's going on. They see Aemon coming back, and they enter a little scuffle over the rights of the dragon, because that's technically, it's kind of messed up that you go to a woman's funeral and then claim her dragon. Kind of messed up. So that woman's kids will obviously be a little ticked off about it. And Aemon loses an eye over the fight. Aemon also notably calls them bastards. The Kingsguard overhears the fight and brings out everyone, and then everyone gets up out of their beds and they have an argument over the situation. The family is tearing apart at the seams. The one-armed king yells into the void trying to calm down everyone. No one seems to listen though. His voice just doesn't carry any weight to it. Alicent wants payment for the eye that Aemon's lost. Rhaenyra's kids speak up on Aemond's bastard claims. Alicent almost scoffs at how obvious of a claim that is. It's a tense scene. We see the tension boiling over. Now there's actual blood being spilled over the rift in the family. Poor Viserys is trying to keep the peace. Aegon mentions that literally everyone knows that they're bastards. He says just to fucking look at them. Viserys goes on about how they're supposed to be a family. He's speaking on deaf ears though. These kids especially have been raised in the middle of this feud. Viserys demands for the children to apologize to one another. Alicent isn't having it though. Alicent demands Criston Cole to take one of Rhaenyra's sons' eyes in return for Aemon's. And she finally breaks. She grabs the king's knife and goes for Rhaenyra. But after all that, Aemon may have lost an eye, but he gained a dragon. The biggest dragon, in fact. And the Greens gained a big W this episode. Laenor was absent during this whole scene. He was most likely struck with grief, oblivious of the whole situation. But when he finally comes back, seeing the damage caused to both sides of this family, he finally comes to its senses. He pledges himself to Rhaenyra and her kids. Honestly, Laenor was not in my thoughts throughout the season, but that act alone won me over. That guy's cool. Cool guy. It's a nice gesture, but Rhaenyra has other plans. She's giving Laenor exactly what he's wanted for the past 10 years, and Rhaenyra and Daemon fake Laenor's death so he and his boyfriend could go off and live in Essos together. It's sweet. It's sweet, but it devastates poor Rhaenys. 2 kids back to back. This poor old woman's not catching a break. This episode is fantastic. Our first bloodshed over the feud between the Greens and the Blacks. The dance of the dragons starting to ramp up. The episode ends with the marriage of Daemon and Rhaenyra and Laenor's escape across the sea. And the end credits roll with the anticipation of the wars to come in the following episode. I love this one so much. We get so much follow-ups to storylines and character motives and past episodes. Aemon's finally getting his moment after being bullied by the other kids. Alicent finally having a breakdown over the season-long prison that she's mentally been in. Viserys yelling on deaf ears, trying to get the family back in order. And the rift that Sir Criston and Harwin stoked between the kids grows by the episode. With all of that, I declare this episode as...
Aren't you just marvelous?
Episode 8, The Lord of the Tides. Another major time skip in this episode. We start at Driftmark. Rhaenys has gotten word that her husband, Corlys, has been wounded in battle. It's been 6 years since he left Driftmark. The health of the aging lord is up in the air. The fate of Driftmark will be the focus of this episode. Corlys' brother isn't a fool and knows the illegitimacy of Rhaenyra's bastards. If Corlys should die, his brother wants the seat of Driftmark for himself instead of Luke, the second son of Rhaenyra. On Dragonstone, new actors have replaced the children once again. Jace and Luke. Jace is trying to fit into the shoes of a young heir to the throne. He's trying to learn Valyrian. The language is a bit tough, though. Ancient Valyrian language back in the day. Daemon and Ray gets a letter from Driftmark. A calling. Corlys' brother. No, Vaemond. I think his name's Vaemond. Vaemond, Corlys' brother, is questioning Luke's legitimacy. He means to bring the issue to court. So Ray and company sail to King's Landing. Upon arrival, things seem a bit different than they once were. No one comes out to greet Rhaenyra first off. All the Targaryen murals and heraldry have been replaced with the Faith of the Seven symbolism. The Hightower family resides in a location in Westeros where the faith is very strong. And if my lore brain is accurate, that's where the Faith of the Seven really originated. Was down there in Old Town. It's dark and cold in the keep. It's not as bright as it once was back in episode 1. We have a council scene. Alicent has taken a tight hairdo and a faith star on her little outfit. Looks like she's playing the part of a religious noblewoman. Rhaenyra and Daemon enter Viserys' chambers. Cobwebs cover his little train set. It's dark, and we get a cold feeling in the room. It looks awful lonely in this keep. Viserys at this point in his sickness is bedridden. We hear wheezing coming from the bed before we get to see him. Daemon can't really look at his brother. His head is face down, and he stays off in the back while Rhaenyra sees her father. Viserys' head is wrapped, covering half of his face. He's a little confused, constantly taking drugs to soothe the pain of his disease. Rhaenyra has to remind her father that it is her coming to see him. The only time Daemon really looks up from the ground is to tell Viserys about the Driftmark succession crisis. If Alicent and Otto lets Vaemond take the throne, it'll prove to the realm that Luke and Jace are bastards, in fact. But Viserys is too drugged up and sick to really understand the situation. He can't handle too complex of scenarios now. But Rhaenyra introduces Viserys to her new sons between her and Daemon. It's a cute moment. Viserys gets struck with pain and demands his, quote, his tea. Daemon reaches it, and it's just straight milk of the poppy, which is basically opium in this world. And Daemon gets a little suspicious of the Hightowers' real intentions behind Viserys' condition.
I have a bad feeling about this.
We get a scene between Alicent and a serving girl. Alicent has gotten used to her power of authority. The servant girl was R-worded by Aegon. Alicent convinces the servant girl to take moon tea and a bribe. Alicent also coaxes the servant girl. She isn't really that cruel to her. She's quite kind to the servant girl. And then the very next scene, Alicent is berating Aegon. Aegon has gotten very much worse. He's just a little demon these days, drinking away and apparently assaulting serving girls.
You what?
She tells him that he's no son of hers and slaps him, and he bites back that he didn't want any of this. He didn't ask for any of this. He'll never be enough for her or father. He feels rejected by his parents. He's a hurt soul. He's a damaged kid, honestly. It's a very interesting case study. He's the firstborn son. Typically, he'd be the heir, but with Rhaenyra and the whole situation, he feels very much rejected by his parents.
Oh, alright, yep, I'll go fuck myself.
Viserys never really cared much about Aegon. He's a demon for sure, and a degenerate, but his character makes sense. And it's quite tragic. Because I'm sure if he got the true love that he needed in his youth, he'd probably turn out just fine. Luke and Jace visit their old training grounds. Luke is uncertain. He doesn't feel worthy of his inheritance. But Jace, he doesn't care. He's the older brother. He's the bold one. He's the confident one. Someone else is also in the training yards. Mr. Aemond. God damn that jawline and that beady little eye. I got chills seeing him for the first time. What a menace. Thunder roars in the distance as the camera pans down to see Rhaenys, a both warning of the looming war and a callback to Rhaenys' Baratheon heritage. Baratheons are from the Stormlands, by the way. Rhaenys is a sad old woman at this point. She's lost her children. Rhaenyra tells her that she had nothing to do with Laenorys' quote-unquote death, but I think it's a little too late. Rhaenys is a little cold to Rhaenyra, for obvious reasons. If Rhaenys and Rhaenyra ever become stronger allies in the future, I wonder if the truth will ever be revealed. Later that night, thunder booms outside as Rhaenyra pleads with her father one last time before the council determines the future of Driftmark. Viserys calls her his only child, which is just, oh my, just goddamn, that hurts. He truly loved her with all of his heart. Nothing seems to really get through to him though. Rhaenyra is conflicted on whether or not she truly wants the crown. It is a very sad scene between a father, a dying father, and a daughter. Morning comes, and we get a better look at how deteriorated Viserys is. He tells Otto he wants supper. Otto reminds him it's still morning though, but Viserys doesn't mean that. He wants supper with the whole family. He says no to the milk of the poppy today. The groans and the wheezing. God, it hurts to see my boy like that. It is time to seal the fate of Driftmark and the future of these bastards. Vaemond shows his case to court. He says that he is Corlys's closest kid, but doesn't outright say that Rhaenyra's kids are bastards. Rhaenyra steps forth, about to make her statement. The throne room door opens, and our absolute homeboy Viserys Targaryen steps through, ready to defend his daughter one final time. This throne room scene is almost the best in the whole season, hands down. There's one more scene I'd say beats that. We'll get there soon enough. Otto slowly gets off the throne. Yeah, you get your rat ass off that throne. My homeboy's in the room. He waddles all the way by himself, giving a look towards his daughter on the way. A Kingsguard goes to help him, but he rejects it. Just a few more steps, and he drops his crown, clinging to the floor. Another hand goes to help him though. Thinking it's the Kingsguard again, he rejects this offer. But we see it's Daemon. He helps his brother to the throne and puts the crown on his brother's head. God damn it, I love this scene. So many emotions, dude. Turns out that Viserys actually heard Rhaenyra's pleads the night before. Oh my god, what a turnaround. Angered by all of this commotion, Viserys reiterates that Rhaenyra's children are not indeed bastards, so what the hell would be the problem? Rhaenys steps forward and surprisingly supports Rhaenyra. Baela and Rhaena, the daughters Daemon had with Rhaenys' Lena. Yeah, the lady that got toasted by Vhagar. Baela and Rhaena would be betrothed to Jace and Luke, solidifying the alliance between them. That's when Vaemond had enough, calling out Viserys on his refusal to recognize the clear bastards of Rhaenyra. He finally says the no word, bastard. Oh. And Daemon cuts his head clean off. After that, Viserys collapses in pain, whimpering. Alicent tells him he needs something for the pain, but he tells her he needs to set things right. We cut to the supper Viserys wanted. The table split between the two halves of the family. A nice book reference there. This goddamn scene almost broke me. This scene right here is my favorite scene in the whole season. Most definitely the scene that has stuck with me the longest. The dinner table is filled with the tension between the two sides of the family, with Viserys in the middle trying to mend the family whole. Aegon makes a jab at Jace, congratulating him on finally being able to lay with a woman. Viserys stands up from his chair. He makes a touching speech, which seems to actually work on both Alicent and Rhaenyra, at least. He takes off his mask, letting everyone see how much his disease has taken him. He no longer has an eye. Rhaenyra stands up, raising her cup to the queen for standing by her husband through all of this hardship. Alicent meets Rhaenyra and lets the past go, raising her cup to Rhaenyra, telling her she'd be a great queen. Otto notices that. He didn't like that so much.
I don't know.
Helena, our weird bug lady Helena, gets up and speaks fluently for seems like the first time ever this whole time. She toasts to the betrothals of Jace and Luke, and even makes a joke about being married to Aegon. And Otto looks like a proud grandpa there. Music starts playing, and Jace and Helena dance together even. I'm sure it's Jace's way to get back to Aegon for making those jokes earlier, but we also get to see what could have been. If you remember, years ago, Rhaenyra offered a betrothal between Jace and Helena that Alicent refused. The dinner starts, and we see a glimpse of an actual happy family. There's laughter and joy, and even Otto, out of all people, is enjoying himself. Viserys surveys the scene, looking at what he did. Seems like he did it. Finally brought the family together. He smiles as he watches Helena and Jace dance. And with the bodies moving between the shots, Viserys goes from being proud and happy, getting the family together to actually work together and have a decent dinner together, to getting hit with another wave of pain, probably for the last time. Daemon has a hard time looking at his brother, and guards are called to take the king to bed. That is probably... This scene, on an emotional level, hit me harder than the Red Wedding. And I think maybe it's possibly purely because I wasn't expecting this scene. Red Wedding was everywhere. You know, I didn't watch the show when it was airing, you know, so I already knew what the Red Wedding was before I started the show. So maybe if I wasn't expecting it, I would have a different take. But this dinner scene, oh my god, on an emotional level, it just hits so hard. A pig is served and is conveniently set right next to Aemond. If you remember, years ago, when they were still children, Luke and the rest pranked Aemond with the pink dread, a pig they dressed up as a dragon, bullying him for being the only kid without a dragon. And Luke is shown laughing a little bit. It provokes Aemond, slamming his fist into the table. Now, he raises a glass to his nephews, calling them good, strong boys. And it starts a ruffle between the boys. Clearly, such a rooted feud could not have been quelled by one dinner. The adults seem to have genuinely looked past this feud. But when you raise children knowing nothing but hating one side, that's too hard to wash out. Daemon breaks up the fight. Alicent and Rhaenyra have a talk. Otto looks at them probably out of both confusion and concern, not wanting his grip on power being taken away. But Alicent and Rhaenyra both want to genuinely reconcile. Rhaenyra plans on coming back on Dragon after they take the kids home to Dragonstone, and it looks like things seem a tad hopeful for the two. They clearly still care for each other, still have feelings for each other, and they've matured since their younger days. The king lays on his bed, groaning in pain. Alicent comes to comfort her husband. In his confusion, Viserys continues the conversation he had with Rhaenyra earlier in the episode with Alicent. Now, one plot point that I left out this entire review up until now is the whole Aegon's prophecy. I left it out because it was never really important to the plot, at least not to like an extreme level, until this crucial moment here. So I'll quickly explain the whole prophecy for those who don't know. Viserys, along with other Targaryens, can have these dreams called dragon dreams. They can essentially tell the future, but most of the time, almost damn near every single time, they always misinterpret the dreams into something else. They're told the future, but they never read it correctly. So it always kind of leads to the Targaryens' downfall in one way or another. Viserys has some of these dreams, and he dreamt of having a son, so that's why he pushed his wife Emma so hard on having one, which eventually led to her death. But the prophecy states that they need a Targaryen in power to prevent the White Walkers from coming to wipe out the world. It's the Song of Ice and Fire, Aegon's dream. Aegon the Conqueror, the first Targaryen to conquer Westeros, apparently did so because he had this dragon dream that the White Walkers would come and take out the entire world. And this prophecy has been told throughout the kings of Westeros. Every single Targaryen king has been told this prophecy. Apparently, this prophecy of having Targaryens in power to stop the White Walkers has been passed down from each Targaryen king. And Viserys told Rhaenyra about this prophecy. And in Viserys' confusion, dying on his bed, he slips up and talks about Aegon. He means the Conqueror, obviously. The first Aegon. Aegon the First. But Alicent thinks he's talking about their son, Aegon, misinterpreting and dying old man's wishes. She thinks Viserys wants their Aegon to be king, and Alicent says she understands, and leaves the room. The episode ends with Viserys begging. He's begging no more. He's saying no more, with his final words being, "my love." He's talking about his love, Emma, his wife he never got over since her death. And Viserys finally gets his peace that he deserves. If it's not clear already, this is my favorite episode out of the season. The acting from Paddy Constantine was phenomenal. King Viserys is such a tragic character. A man who should have never been king. A man whose only wish was to have a happy and functional family. His final acts defending his daughter. His only true connection to his wife and trying to mend his family was the perfect way for his character to go out. And he died thinking he did it. He died thinking he actually fixed the family. And that's what he deserved. He finally found peace in the end. What an amazing episode. So I declare this episode.
I feel like all my kids grew up and then they married each other. It's every parent's dream.
We're getting close to the end of the season now. This episode revolves around the Greens. We see the immediate effects of Viserys' death. It's a gloomy beginning of an episode. One of 2 times piano is ever used in Game of Thrones. Queen Alicent gets news that the king has passed. She is saddened by the news and demands a council meeting. Even Otto seems a little teary-eyed. He's a complex man, this Otto Hightower. Alicent informs the council that Viserys' final wish was for Aegon's succession, but is surprised when there was already a coup planned. A coup. Just about the whole council, including Otto, plan on having Aegon as king, no matter Viserys wished it or not, and Alicent is outraged by this. Beesbury! Lord Beesbury, who has been a part of the council since the beginning of the season, just as a side character, remains loyal to Viserys. He's an old, confused man at this point. Maybe he didn't realize the danger of the situation, but it was nice to see this cute side character stand up for the homeboy. Sir Criston Cole slams Beesbury onto the table, killing him with his own council ball.
Jesus Christ.
It was a pretty shocking moment. The Lord Commander threatens Sir Criston. The council plans to imprison Rhaenyra. Alicent doesn't agree to such schemes. The council wants to kill Rhaenyra and her family. Alicent rejects this plan. A lot of the book fans in particular don't like this scene, but I honestly don't mind it. I enjoyed the conflict within Team Green. Would I have liked the scene to be longer? Sure. I wouldn't mind any moment in this show to be lengthened a little bit. But I do not mind the scene at all. At all. I do find it funny, however, that Otto says no one is allowed to leave the room until the business is settled, yet the Lord Commander just strolled out when he realized the plot the council was unfolding. Rhaenys, who was still at the Red Keep, wakes up to her door locked. She looks out her window and sees noble men and women being escorted. Otto brings a bunch of nobles into the throne room, demanding their support for Aegon. Some submit, others refuse. This is a slow-paced episode, really marinating the moments after the king's death. During the search of Aegon, it is found that he frequents children's fighting pits. They file their teeth down and grow their nails in order to fight better. Aegon really is just a little bastard. 2 twins of the Kingsguard are sent for Aegon. Eric and Eric Cargill. They are twins. They are both in the Kingsguard, and they are sent to go find Aegon. They both have different ideas of being loyal to the Kingsguard, though. One says it doesn't really matter. They swore an oath, and they must find the king. The other sees the treachery of the Greens, and thinks being loyal to Rhaenyra is the better option. It splits these brothers apart. Alicent is seen crying over Viserys' body. She meets with Rhaenys, trying to convince her to join the Greens. Rhaenys doesn't budge, though, and she's able to sneak her way out of the keep. Aegon is eventually found, and is brought to be king. Alicent has an awkward scene with Loras. Everyone talks about this scene. The scene. It is shown that Loras' grip over Alicent has grown. In order to get information from Loras, Alicent must take off her shoes and express to the dogs for Loras' pleasure.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
It's pretty gross. Baseline observation, he has a foot thing. But I think it's so much more than that. The actor who plays Loras even says so. It's much more of a power thing for Loras. It's the fact that she's not into it. He likes to take things away from people. Lower people to his standing. Like the tongues from his little workers. Sure, it keeps them from talking, but it also cripples them, like he is. So this power play on Alicent is much deeper than him just having a foot thing. And thank God for it, because it is gross. And I'm not one for gross's sake. You know what I'm saying? Rhaenys sneaks out with a Kingsguard, one of the Cargill brothers. And they end up getting split up in a crowd. And she ends up heading up to the coronation held at the Dragon Pit, which gives her the opportunity to reach her dragon being held there as well. Aegon, looking miserable, is being ridden by carriage with his mother by his side. He doesn't want the crown. He states that his father never wanted this. He even scoffs at Alicent's claim that it was his final wish. Aegon says Viserys never liked him, but his mother gives him Viserys' knife and tries to give Aegon the confidence he needs, but all Aegon asks is do you love me? Which she responds with, you imbecile, with a slight smile. I really like this scene. That line, you imbecile, could mean so much, you know? It doesn't mean, of course I love you. Yes, sure, it can. She's also saying that he's an idiot because he's just about to be king and you're worried about little stuff like this. You know, it's a nice scene that humanizes a despicable, monstrous man that all he really wants is love. In a similar way, it kind of reminds me of Homelander from The Boys. This monstrous human being, all he really wants in life is love and to be loved. The coronation is loud and grand. Aegon finally gets the love he's been desperately looking for all of his life through the people, which will probably be for the worse, if I have to imagine. I have a feeling that this new love he's getting will only enable him in the future. His newly found confidence will give him the power to do more deplorable acts. When he gets his crown, he looks at each one of his family members for approval. During all of this, Rhaenys snuck away and grabbed her dragon, which is probably the most controversial part of this episode. A lot of people complain about the mass murder Rhaenys committed. It was a bit weird at the time, but I don't know. It's not as weird as some of the other stuff I've complained about. This is one of the moments where I'm like, I don't mind it. All right, I don't mind Rhaenys blowing out of the fucking ground, okay? Because I am 100% sure, unlike the other things I've complained about, there will be consequences for a dragon bursting out of the ground and mass murdering a bunch of peasants, okay? I'm sure that will 100% be called on later in the show. I don't think it's that big of a deal if there's consequences later. The Greens are all about presentation. They use the Conqueror's crown and sword to show Aegon's legitimacy to the throne. They want to show his legitimacy through historical artifacts and this grand event, this grand coronation. And Rhaenys has the opportunity to end the coup right there. But she takes the chance on peace and leaves the scene with her dragon. It's a choice, and I kind of respect it. That's the episode. This was a solid episode, and I don't hate it as much as other people did. But I do agree, the ending was a little weird. Now, all we got is the final episode of the season. The season finale of House of the Dragon is revolved around Team Black. Rhaenyra is preggo. Luke has confidence issues. Being called a bastard all of your life would definitely leave a mark for sure, for sure. For real, for real. Rhaenys has shown up at Dragonstone with news. The king is dead. Daemon instantly blames Alicent. His first emotion is always anger, of course. So many emotions run through Rhaenyra's face, though. Part of it looked like the news she was waiting for, you know, relief. You know, her father was finally at peace after being in pain and suffering for so long. The other part was sudden grief because, of course, it's her father passing. Rhaenyra and Daemon doesn't take the news of Aegon's coronation lightly. All of this stress leads to Rhaenyra's early childbirth. While the men prepare for war, Rhaenyra is stuck giving birth. She can't join her own battle plans. Rhaenyra's baby sadly comes out stillborn. And weirdly enough, with scales, similar to Dany's baby in the main series. You know, if you dive deep into the lore of A Song of Ice and Fire back in the day in old Valyria, when there was multiple houses, many of houses that were dragon riders, there is old theories and old lore bits of blood magic to bond the rider to the dragon itself. That's how this whole blood thing started, because you can only be... Nowadays, you have to be a Targaryen. The Targaryens are the last house of Old Valyria, so they're the only ones that have the blood to ride dragons, which, you know, begs the question how that even started. So there's a lot of lore bits, a lot of theories about blood magic, about binding these families to the dragons in more of a magical way. Blood magic. And, it's cool, but I'm not really all that crazy about it, you know. There's definitely channels that get really into the lore like that, but, you know, I'm here about the story beats, okay? I want the plot, the character development, stuff like that. I'm not that crazy about the little itty bits of lore. It is cool, though. I will say it is very, very cool. During the funeral of their baby, they crowned Rhaenyra Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, a much more legitimate and true coronation than Aegon's. Rhaenyra is crowned by her father's crown. Sir Eric actually showed up. He walked the walk, and he showed up to give Rhaenyra her father's crown. Rhaenys doesn't kneel during this coronation. I think she's sizing Rhaenyra up, judging her, seeing if she's really up to snuff to this new status she finds herself in. The majority of both of these final episodes is simply hyping up the future seasons, setting the final pieces in motion for the Dance of the Dragons. A lot of planning and battle tactics are in order. Rhaenyra notices a sudden shift in tone when she enters the room now. She's getting used to her new position as queen. Everyone waits for her to speak first at the table. Funny enough, this is the same table Stannis will use in the main series, though he didn't light his up like a gaming PC. Rhaenyra looks nervous. She's not fully confident. She's grabbing her hands nervously. They talk of loyal houses. A lot of familiar houses are named. The Aarons, the Tullys, the Starks, Baratheons. Rhaenyra asks about Driftmark. We still have yet to hear of Lord Corlys, his health or position on matters. Otto Hightower arrives on Dragonstone in a similar fashion as Episode 2. This time, however, Rhaenyra is on the opposite side of this conflict. She supports her husband Daemon this time. Otto delivers Alicent's terms. If Rhaenyra bends the knee to Aegon, she will be able to keep Dragonstone. Her sons will be confirmed to be legitimate heirs. Her children with Daemon will be positioned as the king's squire and cupbearer. Daemon is obviously quick to anger at this jest, this absolute tomfoolery. We see both Cargill twins on the sides of their chosen ruler. This war is dividing the realm, and it's represented in both of these brothers. It's tearing families apart, brother against brother in this war. Rhaenyra is thoughtful. She doesn't want to be so eager to shed blood. She says no to bloodshed, and she tells Otto that King's Landing will have their answer on the morrow. She is shown to have restraint against all of these bloodthirsty people around her council. She says she does not wish to rule over a kingdom of ash and bone. She's nervous, holding her hands. Daemon speaks against this at her own council. She clears the room so Daemon and her could talk. They fight over strategy of their war. She tells Daemon about the prophecy Viserys once told her, expecting Daemon to already know about it. Daemon chokes Rhaenyra, angered that his brother never told him of such prophecy, such important knowledge that Viserys kept from Daemon. It's a tense scene. Daemon, for the first time, points his childish anger towards Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra is taken back by her husband's anger. Of course, Daemon will never change. She doesn't know how to process emotions, and it was bound to happen eventually. Corlys awakes from his injuries. His wife sleeps next to him. She's mad at her husband for abandoning her when she needed him most. Corlys is given news about his brother's death, and he finally agrees with Rhaenys that they should back out of this whole ambition, this whole plot, you know, trying to raise their family up, and they should just live out their lives. But it's a little too late for that dum-dum. The war is already happening. Rhaenys knows war is coming, and they just can't sit back and watch the country burn. She tells her husband that Rhaenyra is the only one so far who's shown restraint, pledging Westeros to war. So, the elderly Corlys and Rhaenys officially pledge their support to Rhaenyra's claim. Rhaenyra plans to gain support of House Baratheon, Stark, and Arryn. House Baratheon and Arryn have distant relatives to House Targaryen, so those two houses should be an easy alliance. House Stark, however, they never forget an oath. They're a very honorable house. They stick to their oaths that they have pledged. Jace suggests sending dragons as a show of power and force, and Rhaenyra agrees. Jace, since he's older, will go to the further houses of Arryn and Stark. Stark is all the way up there in the north, if you don't know. House Baratheon is relatively close to Dragonstone, so the younger brother Luke will go and gain the support of Lord Baratheon. The queen sees her sons off. She gives her sons words of wisdom, not to go out as warriors, but as simple messengers. She makes them swear that they will not take any part in any fighting under the gods of the Seven, the religion of Westeros. Rhaenyra reminds her sons that they have to please the country's religion. If they are to rule, they have to respect it. They have to respect the country's culture and religion. She tells Jace that Cregan Stark is the current ruler of Winterfell and is closer to Jace's age than Rhaenyra's, so they should get along just fine. And the Baratheons are related to the Targaryens, so Luke should find an easy alliance with the Baratheons. Luke is scared, unsure.
Mom, I'm scared.
Rhaenyra comforts her son. Storm's End is just a short flight from Dragonstone. It is an easy task for the young prince. She sends her sons off to be messengers on Dragonback. Storm's End is sick, dude. It's such a cool. They really went all out on the designs of these castles in this show. They look so cool. They really nailed the castle's design this time around.
Oh yeah. Oh, mwah. The subtle lines, the shading, the just enigmatic nature of it all. All of this is just, it's perfect.
Luke flies in to meet Boros Baratheon. A familiar shadow looms in the background like Godzilla. And bro, I just leave.
Run! It's Godzilla!
This is clearly not a good sign. And no, like, official greeting outside? Nah, I'm out. Alright. Boros is the son of, the Baratheon who was actually related. I think it was Rhaenys' cousin, I believe. That was the connection. But now his son's in charge. Sadly, that Baratheon is no longer with us. So we don't know how Mr. Boros will respond to Luke coming in and demanding an alliance between Rhaenyra and the Baratheons. Aemond awaits Luke in the throne room of Storm's End. Boros is seated. He is insulted that Luke has nothing to offer him for his support. Aemond already offered to marry one of the Lord Boros's daughters in exchange for an alliance. This was supposed to be a very easy alliance, and it quickly turned into a big problem for poor little Luke. He is sent away by the proud lord, but before he's turned away, Aemond calls to Luke, demanding his eye. Aemond, of course, still wants revenge. Aemond takes off his eye patch, revealing a blue sapphire, like a true anime villain. But Boros refuses bloodshed within his own castle and sends the kids away. And Luke just beelines it towards his dragon. He wants to get the fuck out of there. Alright, he notices Vhagar is already gone though. There's nothing he can do besides just try to fly as fast as he can away. He flies directly into the storm around Storm's End, and it's probably the most tense scene in the entire season. Lightning flashes as we see Vhagar flying above Luke like a shark hunting its prey. Aemon swoops in, taunting Luke. He's toying with him, not really wanting to hurt him. He just wants to get that feeling that he's now the bully in this scenario. He's obviously he still holds a lot of pain from being bullied as a kid. Luke's dragon bites back though, without the permission of Luke, mind you. Luke was just wanting to get out of there, but his dragon felt threatened, so he bites back, spewing fire at the old dinosaur, and that pisses Vhagar off. Alright, and Aemon loses control of his beast. Luke tries to escape Aemon by flying above the clouds, but it was all for naught. Vhagar comes out of nowhere, one clean bite from Vhagar, and Luke and his dragon is gone. No more. One clean bite, and that dragon was not. Both dragon riders lost their control of their dragons, and it resulted in the death of Prince Viserys. Aemon looks traumatized by his dragon's actions. King Viserys did say a while ago that the control that the Targaryens have on the dragons is an illusion for sure. It's the Targaryen blood that allows them to ride the dragons, but they are animals at the end of the day. These beasts are basically living nukes, and when there's an accident, it has big consequences. We are bound to see the fallout of Luke's death in the next season. And we end this finale on Rhaenyra's reaction to the news. The fire burns within her, and peace is definitely no longer an option. What a season, dude! They did a phenomenal job with what they had to work with. Paddy's performance of Viserys was so good that George R.R. Martin himself has stated that he wanted to go back, rewrite Fire and Blood. The season was great. The only big setbacks were the missing plots due to so many time jumps, which was bound to happen. It was an immense task that these showrunners had, and they pulled it off. I love how much time we are spent with these characters this time around. And I say they make the characters much more sympathetic right off the bat this time around. Like, it took like season 3 for Jaime to feel sympathetic, you know? They're not doing the switch around. Like, I say Alicent is super sympathetic right off the get-go. They have a different take on, a different way to write these type of characters this time. Now, we have season 2 to be hopeful for, and I cannot wait to dive into that season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, because I want to do more of these. I really do. I have so many ideas. And I figured out a good, decent format for this kind of type of stuff, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. I want to do more. I want to go through House of the Dragon, the rest of the seasons. I want to go through Game of Thrones, maybe like other shows that I'm interested in, like Shogun, Breaking Bad, that kind of stuff. So let me know. Be vocal. Let me know if you've enjoyed this video. And I'll see you all later.